"You're not even family," my sister screamed at me at Mom's funeral, so I read the will out loud. "Hi there. I never imagined I'd be one of those people posting some wild family drama on here, but here I am, a coffee in one hand and the shattered remains of my patience in the other." Before I continue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Strap in, this is going to be a long one. It's about my mother's funeral, the secrets she left behind, and how my older sister decided that I wasn't family anymore until I made her sit through the truth, in front of everyone. It all started months before my mother died. But to understand why this moment hits so hard, you've got to understand what came before it. The fractures in our family, the years of manipulation, and how grief can twist people into versions of themselves that even they don't recognize. Background: our broken family tree. I, 34M, grew up the youngest of 3 siblings, technically. There's Emma, 41F, the eldest, then Danny, 38M, and then me, Alex. We grew up in a small town where secrets didn't stay hidden for long, unless you had the money and silence to bury them properly. Our parents were respected in the community. Dad was a local judge, known for being fair but firm. Mom ran a real estate agency and basically knew everyone's business. She was elegant, intelligent, and absolutely terrifying if you crossed her. Emma was always difficult. She had a temper like a flash fire and a sharp tongue that could cut steel. But she was also magnetic, popular in school, always the center of attention. People admired her confidence. They didn't see the cruelty she saved for home. Danny was more reserved, quiet. He got good grades, got out of town, and moved to the city the minute he could. We were close when I was younger, but once he left, he never really looked back. Then there was me, 10 years younger than Emma, clearly an accident, and treated like it. The hidden divide. I always felt like I didn't belong. Emma made it obvious. She'd say things like, "You're more like a pet than a brother," or, "God, why did they even have you?" Danny just avoided conflict, and Mom, well, she was cold. Loving in the way that she'd pay for school or make sure I had braces, but emotionally, I might as well have been raised by shadows. It wasn't until I turned 16 that I overheard an argument between Mom and Emma that cracked the illusion. Something about not telling him, and he deserves to know the truth. I confronted Mom about it, and after days of silence, she told me the truth. Dad wasn't my biological father, and Emma and Danny weren't my full siblings. Apparently, when Mom and Dad briefly separated in the late 80s, she had a short relationship with another man. She got pregnant with me. Dad took her back on the condition that it never be spoken of again. So yeah, I wasn't just the youngest. I was the outlier. The ghost of a mistake everyone had agreed to ignore. Fast forward to 2022. Mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was aggressive. We barely had 6 months. Strangely, her illness brought her and me closer. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe she just wanted to tie up loose ends. Either way, we started talking. Really talking. She apologized for the way she treated me. For the distance. For letting Emma treat me like dirt without stepping in. She didn't make excuses. Just explanations. It wasn't redemption, but it mattered to me. Then, one afternoon, she asked me to help her update her will. I wasn't expecting anything big, maybe a few photos or a small check. But when the lawyer came by and she explained her wishes, my jaw hit the floor. She was leaving almost everything to me. The house, the lake property, her remaining investment accounts, the jewelry, the real estate business, which she'd had Emma co-managing but always technically owned 100% of. Emma and Danny would each get a flat sum, a few $1,000s. I told her that would cause a war. She said, "Let it." The funeral. It was a gray February morning. Rain had been falling all night, and the skies were the color of wet cement. We held a simple service, just family, close friends, and a few members of the community. I gave a short eulogy. Danny said a few kind words. Emma? She sat in the front row with her sunglasses on, looking like a mob widow. After the burial, we all gathered at Mom's house. That's when things went south. People were sharing stories, drinking coffee, laughing quietly through tears. Emma wasn't having it. She was pacing, snapping at people, complaining about the food. I tried to stay clear of her, but then I heard her voice across the room. "She should have told us about the will before she died," Emma hissed to Danny. "You know she's leaving that house to the bastard, right? To Alex? The one who's not even family." That word echoed in my chest like a gunshot. I didn't say anything at first. I let her rant, thinking maybe she'd run out of steam. But she didn't. She got louder. And then she turned to me, her voice like a blade. "You don't belong here. You never did. You're not even her son. You were just a mistake she dragged into our lives." The room fell silent. I looked around. Everyone had stopped talking. Danny looked mortified. Emma's husband just stared at the floor. And that's when I stood up, walked over to Mom's desk, pulled open the drawer, and pulled out the envelope she'd given me a week before she died. It was time. The reading of the will. "Mom knew this might happen," I said, holding up the envelope. "She wrote this in her own handwriting, in front of a witness. Her lawyer has the official version, but she wanted me to read this out loud, just in case." Emma tried to grab it. I stepped back. "I'm not doing this for drama," I said. "I'm doing this because she asked me to. And because you decided today was the day to try and erase me in front of people who watched me grow up." I unfolded the letter and read. It wasn't long, but it hit hard. "To my children, if you are hearing this, I am gone. I loved each of you in my own way, but I will not pretend the relationships were equal. To Emma, you were strong, driven, and unforgiving. I trusted you with my business and watched you turn it into your stage. You loved me on your terms. To Danny, you were always kind. Distant but kind. To Alex, you were the one I failed the most. And the one who showed me the greatest patience. That is why I am leaving the things that mattered to me most to him. Not out of favoritism. Out of balance. He deserves what I denied him in life. Love, Mom." Silence. Not even breathing. The silence after I read that letter was so deep you could almost feel the air compress. No one moved. Even the old family friends who'd come to pay their respects looked frozen in place, like if they shifted their eyes, the spell might break and we'd all start screaming. Emma's jaw flexed, her lips parting and closing again as she searched for something to say. She looked around the room, as if expecting allies to rise up and confirm that this was an outrage, that I was lying, that surely Mom hadn't meant any of this. But no one spoke. Not Danny, not her husband. Not even the woman she'd been gossiping with a few minutes earlier. In that moment, she was alone. And I think that was the first time in her life she'd ever felt it. My hands were shaking, and for a second I thought I might burst into tears right there in front of everyone. But instead, what came out was something steadier. I folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. I took a slow breath. And then I looked her dead in the eye. "You don't get to decide who my family is." Emma opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her face was white as porcelain, her eyes darting around for backup. When none came, she swallowed, straightened her spine, and turned her glare on Danny. "And you're just going to stand there?" she spat at him. "You're going to let him pretend he's Mom's golden boy now?" Danny looked exhausted. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, then let his hand fall to his side. "Emma," he said quietly, "maybe we need to let this go." "Let it go? Are you kidding me?" She spun back to me, her voice rising again. "This is theft. It's fraud. You manipulated her when she was dying." "Emma," I said more firmly, "the lawyer will confirm everything. If you want to contest the will, you're welcome to try. But this is what she wanted." I could see the next words forming on her tongue, some final retort, but then she looked around one more time and saw the way people were staring at her. Like she was a stranger in her own mother's house. And maybe she was. For a long moment no one spoke. Then she shoved her chair back, so hard it scraped a gouge in the hardwood floor, grabbed her purse, and stormed out the front door. I watched her walk across the lawn and disappear down the street, her high heels clicking angrily on the wet pavement. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I would ever see her in person. When she was gone, the tension seemed to drain out of the room. People began to murmur, shifting in their seats, glancing at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Danny cleared his throat and came over, resting a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. The rest of that day passed in a kind of fog. I answered polite condolences. I accepted casseroles and awkward hugs. I thanked people for coming. But inside, I felt hollow.
Numb.
As if part of me had detached and floated up to the ceiling to watch all this unfold from a safe distance. It wasn't until later that night, after everyone had left and the house was finally silent, that the reality began to sink in. Mom was gone. Emma had declared war. And everything she'd left me, the house, the business, the memories, suddenly felt like a burden as much as a gift. I spent that first night in Mom's old bedroom, surrounded by her things. The perfume bottles lined up neatly on the dresser. The framed photos of us when I was little, back when she still tried to pretend everything was normal. I lay on top of the quilt she'd made years ago and stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain tick against the window. I thought about what Emma had said. "You're not even family." In that moment, I almost believed her. The next morning, I woke to find the house colder than usual. It was just past dawn, and the sky outside was still heavy with clouds. I padded into the kitchen, made myself coffee, and sat at the table where Mom used to do her bookkeeping. There, next to her old leather ledger, was a small wooden box I hadn't noticed before. I pulled it closer. On top was a folded note with my name in her handwriting. "For when you're ready to understand everything." My stomach flipped. I opened the box slowly, half expecting it to be empty. Instead, inside was a USB drive and a small stack of letters, each one addressed to a different person. One for Emma, one for Danny, one for me, and one with no name at all. I set the others aside and picked up mine. The envelope was thick, heavy with folded pages. My hands trembled as I pulled the letter free and began to read. My letter. "Alex, if you are reading this, it means the funeral is over and you are alone. I'm sorry to put this burden on you now, but I need you to know the truth about everything. You deserve that much. You were never a mistake. I need you to hear that first. I was scared. I was ashamed of how things happened with your father. Yes, your biological father, and I let that shame shape too much of your life. I let Emma's resentment take root because I was afraid of confronting her. I failed you, but I want you to know that I loved you. In my own imperfect way, I always loved you." The USB contains something I recorded during my last weeks. It will explain more than I can write here. Please listen to it when you are ready. And know that whatever you choose to do next, I trust you.
Love, Mom.
I sat there a long time, the letter limp in my hands. The kitchen felt impossibly quiet. When I finally looked up, the first pale light of morning was starting to seep through the curtains. The house felt different, like it was holding its breath. I picked up the USB and turned it over in my fingers. I thought about Emma's face when I read the will, about how she'd looked like she wanted to spit fire. I thought about all the years she'd spent reminding me I didn't belong. Maybe this recording would explain why. The recording. I took the USB into Mom's office, booted up her old computer, and plugged it in. There was only one file. I double-clicked it, and her voice crackled to life through the tinny speakers. "Alex," she said, her voice sounding thin but steady. "If you're listening to this, it means I'm gone. I wish I could see you one more time, but I know you're here with me in some way."
She paused.
I could hear her breathing, labored and uneven. "I need to tell you something I never had the courage to say while I was alive. You've spent your whole life wondering why Emma hated you so much. Why I let her. The truth is, it wasn't just about who your father was. It was about what she found out." Another long pause. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Emma always believed she was Dad's favorite. She thought she'd inherit everything. What she never knew was that when we reconciled, after I got pregnant with you, your father made arrangements to secure your future. He left a trust in your name. Enough money to take care of you no matter what happened to us. I stared at the screen, stunned. But Emma found out. She was 16. She overheard us talking about the trust, about your inheritance. She felt betrayed. She thought it meant we loved you more than her. That was when she decided you were the enemy. Her voice broke. I should have stopped her. I should have protected you. But I was a coward. I let her poison the family because it was easier than confronting the truth. I am so sorry, Alex. There was a rustling sound as she shifted in her chair. The lawyer knows where the trust is. It was always yours. Not to spite her. To protect you. The recording clicked off. The silence afterward was deafening. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Anger? Grief? All of it mixed together in a tide that threatened to pull me under. For years, I believed I was just an accident, an afterthought. Now I knew that not only had I been wanted, but I'd been provided for. And Emma's hatred had been fueled by her own jealousy. Not just because I wasn't Dad's, but because part of her believed I had taken something that should have been hers. I thought about what to do next. About whether to call Danny. About whether to call Emma. In the end, I did neither. Instead, I sat in that chair as the sun rose higher and tried to imagine how life could look now that the truth was finally out. Later that day, I called the attorney Mom had used, Mr. Canley, a soft-spoken man in his 60s who'd known our family since before I was born. He'd handled all the legal aspects of Mom's estate and had been extremely professional during the whole process, but now that I knew about the trust, I needed to hear it from him directly. He picked up on the first ring. "Mr. Callahan," he said, his voice warm but businesslike. "I assume this is about the additional documents?" "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She mentioned a trust. My father, my biological father, left it for me?" There was a pause on the line, not long, but long enough to confirm it was real. "She told you about it?" "She left me a recording." Another silence. Then, "Yes. The trust exists. She instructed me not to discuss it unless you brought it up first. It was established shortly after your mother reconciled with Judge Callahan. Your biological father, however, was the original signatory. It's been accruing interest since 1990. I sat down, heart pounding. "How much?" He gave a small exhale. "As of last week, with the accrued interest and market performance, it's just over $2.8 million. I swear I stopped breathing for a second. She never used it, never touched it. She never could. It was locked until your 34th birthday, unless an exception was granted in writing. She honored that. My 34th birthday had been 3 weeks before Mom died. She wanted to tell me before she passed. I said aloud, more to myself than him. "Yes," he replied quietly. "But she worried about the fallout, especially with your sister." I thanked him and hung up, my mind spinning. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck for years. I had student loans, a beat-up car, and a 2-bedroom rental I shared with a friend. And now, apparently, I was a multi-millionaire. But the money didn't feel like a win. It felt like a secret weapon I hadn't asked for. A time bomb, ticking louder by the second. And the detonation came 2 days later. It started with a letter from Emma's lawyer. She was formally contesting the will on grounds of undue influence, citing my proximity to Mom in her final months and her erratic behavior, while terminally ill. I wanted to laugh. Erratic? My mother spent her final days organizing tax receipts in labeled folders and making pre-need funeral arrangements. She was clearer in those months than I'd ever seen her. Still, the letter was serious. She wanted an emergency injunction to freeze the estate. And she was demanding access to the house for review of sentimental belongings, the letter said. I called Mr. Canley again. He told me not to worry. "We anticipated this," he said calmly. "Your mother made sure everything was airtight." "But Emma's not going to stop," I said. "She's furious." "She can be furious," he replied. "She can file motions, shout in court, hire expensive attorneys. But she cannot change what your mother signed in front of 2 witnesses, notarized and backed with a video confirmation." I asked about the video. He smiled. "Yes." She recorded a second statement in my office, confirming every detail. There was something almost poetic in that. Like Mom knew exactly how this would play out. Emma, of course, didn't take the legal pushback lightly. She started showing up at my apartment. Once, She banged on the door for nearly 15 minutes before my downstairs neighbor threatened to call the cops. She called me nonstop. Sent texts so long they were basically essays. Voicemails, too, some where she was crying, others where she was spitting venom. You manipulated her. You stole from us. She was sick, Alex. Sick. You think that money makes you part of this family? You're just a parasite, she felt guilty about. Then one day, she crossed a line. I came home to find my mailbox smashed. Spray painted on the wall next to it was a single word.
Thief.
There were no cameras on the building and no one had seen anything. But I knew it was her. She was unraveling. I documented everything. I forwarded the texts and voicemails to Mr. Canley. He advised a restraining order if it escalated further.
It did.
1 week later, I found a dead bird on the hood of my car. Its wings were spread out, neck twisted, a smear of blood across the windshield. Taped to the bird was a note. Justice will come for you, faker. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just stared at it, at the small twisted shape of something once alive, and felt a deep, ancient fatigue settle in my bones. That's when I knew I had to end it. Not just with lawyers. Not with court filings. But with the only thing Emma cared about. Her reputation. Because what I hadn't told anyone, not even Canley, was what was in the fourth letter. The one with no name. It was written to me, but about her. The fourth letter. Alex. I debated whether to give this to you. Part of me wanted to burn it, and let sleeping ghosts lie. But I know Emma, and I know she won't stop until she's destroyed something. So here is the truth. In 2004, Emma was arrested. She was 20, home from college for the summer. She and her then-boyfriend broke into a neighbor's house, Mr. Brimley's, the one with the glass art collection. They didn't take much, but they were caught. She was high. The police covered it up. Your father pulled strings. He agreed to make it disappear on the condition that she go to rehab, which she did. But it's why we paid for her apartment, why we got her that job in real estate. Everything after that was us trying to steer her toward a life she couldn't sabotage. She doesn't know we kept the police report. Or the photos. But I kept them. Because someday I thought I might need to remind her of who she really is. And there they were, attached in a paperclip, 3 grainy printed photos of a trashed living room, glass shattered on the carpet, and a single yellowed report from the sheriff's office, stamped sealed. My hands trembled. I didn't want to use it. I didn't. But she had threatened me, defaced my property, tried to poison the last good thing Mom gave me. And now she was about to drag me through court and ruin my name to protect her ego?
No.
Not this time. I didn't post it on Facebook. I didn't send it to the town gossip blog. I sent it to her directly. An envelope. Hand-delivered by courier to her office. Inside, just the report. A copy of the note Mom wrote explaining it. And a typed message from me that read, "Keep pushing, and the world will know. Or walk away now and let it end." She got it around 10 a.m. By 10:45, her lawyer called to withdraw the motion to contest the will. By noon, Emma had deleted her Facebook account. And 2 days later, I heard from an old friend that she had left town, gone to her husband's parents' place 2 states over. No forwarding address. I never heard from her again. 6 months later. The house is quiet now. Peaceful. I had it renovated. Nothing major, just some fresh paint, new furniture, updated fixtures. I kept Mom's office mostly intact, though. Something about it still feels like hers. The business is doing well. Better, even. I kept her staff. Promoted a few of them. We've modernized things, online listings, social media marketing, that kind of stuff. The name Callahan Real Estate still carries weight around here. Danny visited once. He apologized again. We had a long, awkward dinner where he tried to explain how hard it was growing up with Emma, how she always took up all the space in a room, how she weaponized everything. I didn't absolve him, but I didn't throw him out either. We talk occasionally now. Not like brothers, exactly, but something close to allies. Sometimes I walk the edge of the lake property at night, listening to the wind stir through the trees. I think about Mom, about the choices she made, the ones she didn't, about how silence can be a shield or a sword. I'm not angry anymore. Not really. I just see things clearly now.
Emma was wrong about me.
I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't a parasite. I wasn't not family. I was the only one Mom trusted with the truth. And in the end, that mattered more than blood.